Producer Lauren, did you know that Dave Rubin was on Tucker Carlson's show last night?
In fact, we did.
Yeah, I think we caught this. Well, I guess we'll play this in a second. While Tucker was safely ensconced in Tokyo to complain about the suppression of YouTube, does Rubin fulfill some sort of gay quota that for Tucker that peaked when he had Caitlyn Jenner on as a disloyal log cabin Republican? Do you know why Randy Rhoads wasn't allowed to podcast from tonight's debate? Lash the Fash. I don't know the answer to any of those questions, but we do have this clip. And again, you know, we all know what Tucker Carlson is, but it is funny to me that, I mean, Tucker clearly understands that Dave is not the sharpest operator. So there's always a funny tenor to their interactions because Dave is like slobbering with excitement that he's doing a cable hit, and Tucker's like, you know, the same way with Prager, like, hey, you know, you're the gay guy who co-signs on all of the bad things. That's great. But there's always that little Tucker like, wow, this guy's really stupid.
Do I really have to walk you through all this?
Walk through this? You can't just do this yourself? All right, let's check this out.
Dave Rubin hosts the Rubin Report on YouTube. The Google whistleblower says that his channel is one of the channels that Google's algorithms work to suppress. Watch this.
And right after that happens, a lot of the content creators start.
Right after the Masonic Lodge meeting happened.
Right, yeah, I was going to say, this is the difference you could tell between Tucker Carlson and Dave Rubin. That in the Tucker Carlson production process, they were like, why don't we cut out the Masonic Lodge meeting part of the video?
Creators started to get demonetized, and their videos started to get deranked. I'm talking about Dave Rubin.
Who wanted to demonetize me?
Tonight. What do you make of that, Dave, when you hear that?
Tucker, I guess you didn't know when you came to my house to do my show, to my little garage studio, and you played with my dog and saw my backyard chickens. You didn't know what a crazed right-wing radical I was. So I'm glad that we've gotten that out there. Look, of course.
Tucker Carlson is a crazed right-wing radical, so why would he have a problem socializing with one? What do you... This guy is so stupid, it's breathtaking. All right, keep going.
So I'm glad that we've gotten that out there. Look, of course, this is complete nonsense. I mean, we've discussed this many times. I am an old school liberal, so this is not like I'm some far lefty and I'm not some far righty. I'm a pretty moderate guy. I've tried to build some bridges here. And even that now is becoming too extreme for what Google and YouTube are allowing to happen. One of the things that I've done that I'm most proud of, actually, is I've had conservatives on my show.
We know you're proud of that, Dave.
Definitely. I know that. It's brilliant.
Had conservatives on like Tommy Sotomayor and Stefan Molyneux.
Yeah, the way you build bridges is you have Tommy Robinson on. You go like, really? The Muslims have their own quarter of the city?
And why would the far left let you just be and let you live a little bit,
I don't
Tommy?
understand. They don't want you to talk about the brain
They don't
sizes?
want you to be part of this new center we're
Yeah,
building.
there's this new center where people talk about terrorizing migrants off the coast of the Aegean. Is that how you say it? Aegean. That's a fun word.
Is I've had conservatives on my show like you, like Dennis Prager, Ben Shapiro, etc., and I've treated you guys with respect and decency, and that really is what the mainstream media and sort of the New York Times, CNN crew doesn't want people to see. They just want to create a caricature of all of you guys. So that's sort of why they're coming after me. But I will say this: just moments before we started here, I just got notified that Susan Wojcicki, who's the CEO of YouTube, she actually followed me on Twitter. So.
This is awesome. This is where Tucker like is starting to get his little bloated squint face, or he's just sort of like, shouldn't you be running a little bit more mileage out of this? You're so like, excited. You're so desperate for any kind of social validation that one YouTube follow is going to completely puncture the segment. Jesus Christ, you're an empty-headed, vacuous moron.
I wolfed down my last rolls of sushi to get back to the studio to interview this moron.
I'm still trying to get eel washed down my throat. I thought we were going to go dunk off and make some 7-year-olds freaked out about Google supporting the Angela Davis agenda. And this idiot gets a follow on Twitter, and all of a sudden he's not even upset for the segment. God, this guy's dumb.
I could have been honorary first mate on a whaling boat this afternoon, and instead I'm in a studio talking to this moron.
I've got over 1 million subscribers on there, and I don't have as much of it as an email address of someone at YouTube, but maybe I am starting to make some headway now. And, quickly to your point on where sort of libertarians are at right now, I think there's an interesting moment here where generally small government people, and I think you're sort of in that group too, our limits are being pushed on what small government actually means. And for me, I would always prefer a private answer to this in competition, but maybe there has to be a sort of two-pronged approach where politicians are putting pressure and then public people are putting pressure.
Because competition is not kicking in.
Well, I love this. This is so incredible. I mean, Jesus Christ. Okay, no, wow. He is really so dumb. So first of all, Tucker Carlson is absolutely not at least positioning himself brand-wise as a libertarian. In fact, Tucker Carlson has made many provocative comments, including recently going through sections of Elizabeth Warren's economic plan and her 2003 book, The Two-Income Trap, to talk about any number of economic populist proposals that he's at the very least willing to pretend to support. He said to Ben Shapiro, I don't believe in the market as some type of religious force. And if I knew that automation was going to eliminate some disastrous amount of jobs, I would regulate against it. That is totally anti-libertarian. And then when you combine that with like the plays to like the old folks about how like try having a conversation with a teenager on pot, that does not fit with the whole like, ooh, I'm a libertarian. I don't care if a conjunction of Monsanto, Bayer, and Microsoft owns the planet, just so long as you could smoke a little pot, or whatever ways that they do like their fake like 1970s groovy points on.
No.
So Rubin doesn't even know the basics of where he is. Then there's like the deep point that these are communications commons, and obviously you can't leave it into the hands of Silicon Valley. That is the appropriate democratic response to it, the opposite of an actual libertarian response. So what Rubin, though, is doing here, and I think is actually sort of, especially by his standards, and he's not, I don't doubt he's doing it intentionally, but it's kind of clever. He's still saying, like, this basically should be a private market mechanism because I'm a mouthpiece for corporate America. But what we should do is we should have more hearings where idiots and fascists and demagogues like Steve King are just like, go to Facebook, comms teams and say, like, is this a page that tells kids that it's all right to be gay? Well, I'm wondering why the same page that says they should slit their wrist is not getting top of the algorithm. That's what he means by public pressure.
Where politicians are putting pressure and then public people are putting pressure, and we can maybe make these companies sort of be a little more transparent, be a little more open, which really is all anyone's asking for here.
I got a feeling
that's such a great freeze frame.
Yeah, I got a feeling that if
Tokyo listening to this,
if YouTube did what we think it should do and just banned people who launder white supremacists and were transparent about not accepting that, like that knitting website that recently did that. Did you hear about that? They're just like, we're kicking off all Nazis, and everyone's like, I guess you can just do that.
Yeah.
Then I think Rubin would still have a problem with that because he would probably get swept up in that.
Yeah, I think Rubin, and I don't think changing the title from Race and IQ to Controversial Opinions, ooh, that's an idea. I don't think that would do so well. And I also don't think it would do so. I also think if you did what these companies need to do, which is you had an actual human editorial process, I don't think that would bode so well for him either. And I also think in any society where any decent number of people across the political spectrum still understood that eugenics and racism and things like that were bad things and undesirable, and you didn't need to be like a woke lord to understand that, I don't think Dove Rubin is going to bode too well in in that society either.
I'd bring them to heel by force tomorrow. I wouldn't. The libertarian solution, I think, we're past that time. And would you allow a power company?
There you go.
To say we're denying you electricity because you voted for someone we don't like? Of course, we would not allow that.
Well, I think that's
the utilities
I think that's
exist
a totally
because the
valid
government allows them to.
Yeah, I think that's a totally valid argument. Look, as my friend Eric Weinstein says, it's like one day are we going to get to the point where our Republicans are going to be allowed to have phones in their homes? I mean, that's sort of where we're heading with all of this. My preference would be that these companies, through public pressure, will move. But you might be right, and I think that's just an incredibly rich debate that we should be having more often.
Deplatformed by the phone company.
That, but
He's so fucking
Dave Rubin, great
stupid.
to
see you. You know, I Tucker. I will confess I didn't watch the whole clip, but I had to do that whole work to explain Tucker's politics, and Tucker did that for me much more brutally than I've ever done it.
Yeah, no, he's a big government paleo-conservative.
And by the way, I agree. I'm on that side of the debate. These companies need to become public utilities. They need to be heavily regulated. And I absolutely do not trust any process in the long term that Silicon Valley companies are in charge of deciding these things. That is insane. And even if they make short-term decisions that are positive and we may like, and by the way, most of the short-term decisions they've made are horrible. In fact, there's a reason the algorithm has helped feed the growth of these kinds of channels and content. That's a fundamental danger to media and democracy. They cannot be in Silicon Valley's hands. They need to be in public hands, period.
I think Tucker and us kind of understand that equally on some level. Like, we don't have an issue with YouTube controlling the kind of speech that's on there. We both understand that it's a vehicle for ideology. He just wants it to be a vehicle for white supremacist ideology, and we want it to be a vehicle for, liberation and whatnot.
Of course, but the fundamental regulatory question, I agree 100%. And it is really funny just to watch Dave just completely not like, and I love how that's always his move, which is like, well, it's a rich conversation. That's another thing that clearly I have actually no understanding of, but I love to pretend that I'd love to explore it.
I want to shout out a really good video by Sean, YouTuber Sean. I think a lot of people probably have heard about him before.
Him. Sean's good.
He did a "What is White Supremacy?" a response to Steven Crowder video. And this little section on Dave Rubin building bridges with people like Laura Loomer I thought was very, very funny. Or scary, I don't know.
Both.
Then what? Well, you would agree that some of it.
Returning to Lauren Southern, however, she would appear to disagree.
Then
to collect identical. Returning to Lauren Southern, however, she would appear to disagree.
Then what? Well, you would agree that some of it exists, right? Like there's something there somewhere that's true.
Yeah, even the Richard Spencers of the world, like they're kind of misrepresented as well. Like Richard Spencer is not a white supremacist. He is a white nationalist. He believes in a white ethno-state. He doesn't believe in whites being superior. So
Richard Spencer is not a white supremacist, apparently. He's a white nationalist, according to Lauren Southern. However...
And I don't identify as a white nationalist, just to let that be known. History is often a zero-sum game. History is often about subordination and domination. And it's about patronage and so on. And if we want to try to get away from that in order to be ideologically pure, like, every ethnicity will have its little state, we're not going to really go anywhere.
There's Dave. Dave's
wow, that's
building
so
bridges.
interesting. That's so interesting. He wants an ethno-state, but not a white, because I could live, like, just because I have my own house doesn't mean I think I'm better than other people. That's so interesting.
Oh, sidebar.
That is such a great illustration too, because I just, clearly he has no problem and he has no ethics, and he's in addition to being incredibly stupid and funny, is obviously a very bad person, but he has no problem, building a platform that's leveraged by having people like Laura Southern and Molyneux and so on.
That's how he's made his money.
That's how he's made his money. And don't forget, Sam Harris has drearily supported him every step of the way. And been a regular as well. But now that it's a two-step game, because on one hand you need to scream from the hilltops about censorship, but now it's a lot more like, hey, Ben Shapiro on, right? Like he's gonna be trying, and the retitling the video name and all of that, he's gonna want that to escape down, the memory hole. So, this is a good time for people who like to do that sort of internet-based having fun like that, to just do, steady reminders, especially when Dave is like whining to the CEO of YouTube. You could drop in those threads before, and I'm sure he'll block you, but you could also forward it to people like us.
Yeah, because he can't block us.
He can't block us. We will share, this is the type of thing that Dave thinks is super important that we're clear about online, which is telling uninformed 14-year-olds that there's a profound intellectual difference between supporting an ethno-state and being a white supremacist. Thank you, Dave. Very important intellectual work. Appreciate that.
All hands on deck in the posting wars right now.
Well, exactly. And we are literally taking money out of their operations pockets by doing things like saying, hey, Buttigieg, don't go on this white supremacist launderer show.
Right. 100%.
And actually, this is what Sam mentioned this, but when he announced he was going to do a book, and we said, we're going to flood the algorithms so people know who he is, mission accomplished.
He's writing a book. I don't understand. Sometimes it's still the simple things with him. That he actually. I mean, look, writing a book is pretty friggin' hard. I mean, writing a book, the idea of him composing an email about ideas.
No, I just picture like business cat sitting at the computer, kind of pawing at the keyboard.
Ideas, the left. I mean, Jesus Christ. And it still hasn't happened. I mean, it's amazing that they couldn't. Yeah, it's hilarious. All right, you're calling from an 817